Hey, everybody, and welcome to Your Next. I'm your host, Jerome, and I've got Michelle in with me today. Michelle, how are things down in the sunny state of Florida?
Things are fabulous, my friend. It is sunny and 78 degrees today.
I feel like it's always sunny and 78 until you get to
Yeah,
summer, and then it gets unbearable if you're in Disneyland with kids, but that's for another day.
that
So,
was for another day.
Michelle Jacobik has been an entrepreneur for a long time. She's helped people navigate transitions. And much of that has come from her lived experience. And so sometimes you get people to come in and they want to tell you about what they read in a book. And then you find people who have actually been through it, helped other people through it, and now they're doing it at scale. And Michelle is one of those folks. I met Michelle, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 years ago, but what's been really cool about our meeting is it doesn't matter how long we don't talk in between. We pick right back up. We remember all of the stuff we talked about in the last conversation, and it's just genuine connection. And so, Michelle, I'm so grateful that you are honoring me with the gift of your presence on the show today.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
So, I I want to talk about, I want to open up the show talking about something that a lot of people have experienced, but most people don't talk about: divorce
Mm.
and what happens on the backside of divorce. And they're like, Jerome, this is a show about your next. Well, here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. Many people who exit think about their exit as a divorce, especially if it didn't go as they planned. And so I think this conversation is really relevant. And I promise if you stay with us long enough, we'll bring it all together and put a bow on it. So we're going to go left only to come back right. So, Michelle, let's talk about prosperity after divorce, because I think most people think, especially if they're the breadwinner, that prosperity after divorce is a oxymoron.
Right? You are right about that. And I love that we're going there because I think that you just hit the nail on the head, right? Anytime that you have any transition in life, whether it's planned or unplanned, it definitely feels like a divorce or worse, right? It feels like a death. You're at your own funeral, but you're actually living it. And for me, I mean, here's what happened for me. Two kids, picket fence, great house, high school sweetheart. And we did really, really, really well for a period of time, and we built a family. We co-parented fabulously together. And over time, as many people find themselves, there's this like disconnect, right, on the personality charge and just different values and the way that we saw things. And I think that we both probably knew in the probably 15-year mark is where people hit that thing in their business or in their life, and they're like, is this it? Are we on the right path? And that's where we found ourselves. So fast forward, right? Like we built things together. He was in the union. I was in the insurance space and financial services. I ended up buying the agency that I worked for right before I turned 30. We were both turning 30 that year. And I was the one that kind of went out, and he was the stability, right? In terms of like the union, the benefits. And he spent 18 years in the union before we had made some decisions around our lifestyle that we were giving away a whole paycheck, and it was his, and that we had a lot of just insanity in our worlds around getting the kids and managing the lifestyle, which is where so many people find themselves. And then you make a decision that someone's going to stay home and stabilize things. And so we had gone through so much growth together in terms of the financial decisions that we made. And we did that really, really well. Where we found ourselves, though, in 2009 was that he had been home for, I don't know, probably 4 years at that point with the kids and doing a great job. But we also, like many couples, like things start to slip apart, right? And we tried all the things. He did therapy, I did therapy, we did therapy together, whatever. And we're like, okay, could we maybe just like do this better and maybe do it separately, right? And do the parenting well. And that's where we found ourselves. But I think what I would say about the prosperity after divorce piece is most people can't get there because every decision that they're making is an emotional decision, and it is a contract, right? Marriage is a contract, and then divorce is like literally you're ripping everything apart. And as most people know, you're also cutting everything in half. So in 2009, when everything seemed very rosy and the things that we had built together, and we were very proud of the fact we made it 23 years, the fact was everything was going to be split in half. Half of our retirements, half of the house, half of the equity, half of the savings, right? Now the kids' schedules, like craziness. And I think that so many people, even when they come into a situation where there is time to plan and there is some conversation, they aren't prepared. They're not prepared for what's going to happen when your lifestyle is the income is split in half. Maybe you're paying alimony, child support, whatever the case may be, settlements. There's all of this emotion around it. And then you come into the financial aspects, which just pours gasoline on it. And I think that for prosperity after divorce is a support tool that says, for me, I was good with money and I knew that I was going to walk through this thing and I had support, but there was no bridge to put the two together. So everything that I was doing, right? Everything that he was doing, like we were trying to figure it out. There was nobody, yes, there were divorce coaches, but they didn't have any clue about money. There was people that could work on the divorce segment piece, but they had no clue about like how to unpack the emotional, a bit the holistic pieces of the divorce. And so I felt really wonky in that stage trying to figure it out. And for me, I actually slipped way back in terms of like feeling like I'm 20, feeling like I'm out spending, like I was all the things that I did in the financial immaturity places. It's like I left all the confidence that I had built and the tools, and I just started navigating this place that was so new and foreign in a way that I had no idea how to do it. And so I wasn't even bringing the tools with me that I knew. And I knew when I got probably 6 or 9 months in, I found myself like, wait a minute, literally like eating out all the time. Okay, I don't have the kids. I'm going to strike loneliness and I'll go out with a girlfriend. I'll go to the spa this weekend if I don't have them. Like you're doing all these things emotionally. And I found myself in this place of like a disconnect on the finances at a time where I should have been leaning in and really looking at what does this lifestyle redesign look like, right? And so the parallels are that we have to take the blinders off and go into the holistic places of what is our new vision for our life? What are the new goals we're going to set for ourselves? Get the emotional healing that we need. Is there spiritual things like, if there was indiscretions, right? Then there's resentment and there's this self-worth thing. And so there's all of these holistic places that even through the lens of finance that I write about in Prosperity After Divorce, bringing yourself through the mapping of like lifestyle redesign planning is so key because there is this essence of money being our deepest sense of security. And when you're going through one of the biggest things in your life, an exit, a divorce, any transition, planned or unplanned, we have to have some security. And part of our security is that love of self and money. And not from a wealth perspective, but like, can we take care of ourselves? Can we take care of our children? What's going to happen, right? Especially if somebody exits the marriage and like all of a sudden you had no idea they were leaving. Those are the calls that I get most time. It's, oh my God, my husband came home and he told me he wants a divorce. Oh, I just found out that she's cheating, whatever. Yeah. The truth is that in all of those emotional places, we still have to come out of this. We have to go towards the place of financial empowerment and not into financial avoidance. Because what happens 3 years post-divorce or 3 years exited in any state is if we are in financial avoidance, three things happen: misaligned spending, missed opportunities, and a sense of financial instability, which does nobody good. So really that lesson of moving through the process of divorce, I found myself right back to my 20s where I totally screwed up financially and I had to reset. Like I had to figure it out. And here I was again going, oh, I have to figure out what this new thing looks like and sit down and actually map out, have a roadmap, have a runway for what this transition was going to look like.
That's beautiful. Like the way you describe that kind of reset to your 20s is what we see a lot when founders, when they get the windfall and they move into financial immaturity. I like think that's a beautiful way of describing it. And they just coming to all of their hedonistic tendencies. And it's like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. And it's like they've been disciplined for so long and they just take it off and they gorge.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's very difficult for them to put it back in the bottle if they need to. And that catalyst for that is usually some intense pain. But you said something that really made my eyebrow raise and in some ways made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. And it was money is like the ultimate form of security or something along those lines. And I want to dig deeply into that because I think that so many people expect money to do things that it can't actually do. And so
That's
can we
right.
talk about this perception on money and security and maybe the
Absolutely.
relationship?
Yeah, I think that you're 100% right. I think that where I found myself, as soon as I bought that business, right, at age 30, I was like, oh my God, I've arrived. Because I spent my entire 20s trying to figure it out, made a mess of it, found my way out of debt. And then I was like, now look, I was able to actually, at 29 years old, like coming out of debt at like 23, like credit card debt and payday loans that people didn't have at that age, right? They had student loan debt that was starting. So here I was like still coming out. I did the physical aspects of coming out of that state, but I didn't do the emotional aspects. So when all of a sudden I arrived in my mind, right? I was like, look at that. The kid that came up with nothing just paid 1 point something million for a business that I have probably no business even owning, right? And I was able to navigate all of that. And I just, to your point, it didn't make me happier. I thought I was going to wake up and be like, oh, nirvana, right? This level of success was going to fill this hole. And what it did was I was like, oh my God, I love what I do. Fast forward like 10 years, I'm in it. I'm doing great with it. I love what I do, building something, making an impact in the community. But the money part, right? The freedom of money came, but the freedom of time didn't come. Most entrepreneurs go into business for the freedom of time and the freedom of money, right? And so I had the money freedom. I didn't have the time freedom. I had built a monster. I became a monster to the business, right? Like the next metrics and how to be the best and how to win that trip and all the things, right? That kept feeding my ego and not, and even though the bank account was being fed, it wasn't the success that I define today. So to your point, right? I also, on the other side of things, on this money conversation, is I believe that the financial DNA that we have, right? You can have all the money in the world, but if you haven't worked on the financial DNA, on shifting it, that set of beliefs that actually are how we behave and think about money that we carry, often influenced by our family, our experiences, our habits that we developed in our younger years or had our that were transferred up to us by our parents or family, it impacts the way we view saving, spending, wealth building. And so the first thing is moving from that ideation of like what success is and what money does for you and into that place of it's a tool, but what are the things that it's doing for me inside, right? Like, is it driving me to be ego driven? Is it driving hustle culture? Is it taking away what I truly want in life, which is time freedom? And instead, my family's getting crumbs, right? Because I'm chasing the proverbial dollar. And so there is this beautiful thing that you can look at sustainable wealth strategy by transforming your financial DNA. And so I think so many people come into all these different segments of our life. And if we've never even stopped long enough consciously to think about what money does mean to us, whether or not we're driving it out of the park that still have that imposter syndrome, right? I have a client that I'm working with right now. Him and his wife both grew up on welfare, trailer park. They're hitting it out of the park, right? $2-3 million, almost 3 million in sales a year. But they literally are feeling like imposters because they have no idea what to do. And so it goes both ways. You can have scarcity, real scarcity, which when you don't know where your next paycheck is coming from or how you're going to keep the lights on or food on the table, that is what I mean by a sense of financial stability and financial money being a sense, our deepest sense of security. Because if you can't keep the lights on, you don't feel secure in any area of your life. And so that piece of the money is what I speak to in regards to not being in financial avoidance and knowing that you can change the situation, right? I truly believe that financial consistency is what leads to financial stability, even in the darkest of times, in the darkest road that you might be on. I believe that financial consistency is what leads to financial stability. And we
Absolutely.
all have the choice. We have the choice. And mostly it's education. It's making a different decision. It's acknowledging that where you are right now isn't where you want to be. And what are the tools we all can learn? We can all read a book for free. We can all ask people that are further along than us, like, where were you? This is why these podcasts are so important, right? Because it gives people a taste of they're not there yet, but they can come in and with some guidance, take a nugget and move themselves into a place of hope rather than despair, even if it's just by thinking about how somebody else has done it. And if they've done it, I can do it too, right? Obviously, it's a mindset thing, right? It's all here. The money stuff's all here and it's here. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that the money being a sense of security can go both ways, right? It can make people ugly. Just like I always say, you can have a brick and a brick can do good, or you could hurt somebody with that brick, right? And money is the same way. It's a tool.
Yeah. It's an amplification, it's a megaphone, and it just gives the world more of whatever you were giving before. I asked the question about the security of money because I think without the consistency leads the stability comment that you made, that money can be fleeting. And I think a lot of people assign identity to how much money they have in their bank account or how much they have invested. And it's like, oh, I'm a millionaire, or oh, I'm a accredited investor, or I'm a billionaire. And it's just like,
I'm
but
in
what does it
private
actually?
equity. Yeah, I'm in private equity. I hear that like a couple times a week, right? And I'm like, what does that mean? Yeah, what
And
does it mean at the deepest level? And I think it's different for everybody, right? But I think people that are more evolved in this consciousness place, right? Many spiritual teachers remind us that where attention goes, energy flows,
Mhm.
right? So if you put your attention on meeting your financial goals and you anchor that energy with hard numbers and timelines, you're more likely to get where you want to go. And also, if you are anchoring that energy in that egocentric energy, the jet, the this, the that, all the things that at 20, I had it all on my vision board. My son is 26 right now. And he's like, I'm totally going to have a private jet by the time I'm 37. And I'm like, yeah, I remember. I remember thinking the same thing, right? And my vision board was filled with all the things. And now it's more filled with how I want to feel and experiences that I want to have, right? Reminding myself to breathe, exhale, right? So it's just, I think it's an evolution, right? And I think that so many times people, I mean, honestly, Jerome, it took me hitting that proverbial wall myself in my business. I hit the proverbial wall of burnout and this just not being happy or fulfilled. I loved what I did, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And I knew that I had to make a different decision. I had to make a new decision. I had to decide that it was okay to take another road without changing the destination, right? My destination was I wanted to align who I was as a person and include my vision and bring all of my life together. And honestly, I wanted to take all of it and serve in the world a different way, right?
So,
I was being of service, but in the risk management side and being a trusted advisor. And I love working with entrepreneurs, but I was like, I didn't even know what it was. I didn't even know like what it was. I just was like, I know there's something different and what I'm doing right now is no longer serving me. It's no longer serving me.
so that sounds like elevated consciousness. So you mentioned burnout. So many folks come to us burnt out and they're like, I got to get out of my business. And that's absolutely the worst time for people to sell because they make erratic decisions trying to find relief. How did you come back from the burnout? And did you make any mistakes when you were in that state that if you could do it all over again, you would do differently?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I think I was smart enough because this burnout happened for me 4.5 years post divorce. I think that there were just so many signs that I was being shown that I wanted to show up differently for my children, right? Like they were getting crumbs. I was still giving crumbs. Like I was like, wait a minute, it has to get better than this. And I think for me, I didn't just like, to your point, a lot of people just hit burnout and they just want to either they want to sell, they want to close their doors. Too many people don't even think about their exit plan. Luckily for me, my business partner and I, when we started 16 years pre this decision for myself, we always talked about building it for not building it for cash flow, but building it to sell, right? So from the early beginnings of making that investment, both of us buying into this business, we knew that that was a strategic decision and that we would like literally by our 5-year mark, we were having the business evaluated every year. So if there was a death or a disability, now remember, right? I have a financial services background. I was in property and casualty insurance. And so just the buy sell agreement that came out, like we addressed all of those things that so many founders just leave out, right? We had in there, if there was a disability, how long would we manage for each other before the other person had the first right of refusal or needed to come and have the conversation about the sale? So every year we had the business evaluated. It was just part of our annual planning, right? We did the taxes, we gave it to the CPA, the information went over to the business evaluator. And then there was never a question about what the number would look like if there was a death, a disability, or a decision that one of us wanted out or that we wanted to sell, right? And so when I hit that, when I started getting that, I would say it was sandpaper in the beginning. It was like sandpaper rubbing on me. And then I literally started getting hit with 2x4s, right? But when the sandpaper started, I started thinking to myself, like, okay, are we maximizing, right? Like every year we would sit down and like get the number, but then it was like, okay, if I know that I want to make an exit in 2 or 3 years, like how are we maximizing? Like what are the things that need to change? And in every industry, it's different, right? In insurance, we had a book of 7,600 clients and the segregation was all over the place in terms of like home, business and whatnot, right? We were a property and casualty agency. And when hurricanes happen, okay, carriers don't want to write in those zip codes. And we had a very heavy concentration in certain zip codes. So I knew that if the sale was going to be maximized, like we had to always be looking at those different things, not the potential that a buyer would have, but like what was it worth in the moment and the things that would have to be navigated if another hurricane happened on a shoreline or something, right? So I think for me as an owner, I always made sure that I understood how to maximize the value. So it didn't feel like, even when I hit that proverbial wall, it was still a 2 or 3 year wall. I was like, no, I could never have enough. Because to me, it was like, why can't I just stay and change the way I'm showing up in the business, right? That's what a lot of people say. It's like, well, why don't you just change the way you showed up? Well, I had a business partner and I didn't want another divorce. I had just gone through a divorce, right? 4.5 years earlier. And in all fairness, it's kind of like coming home and saying, if you're the one that cooks dinner every night, saying, I'm not cooking dinner anymore. So for me to go to my business partner and say, hey, I want to work 9 to 3, I want to do this or that. We had a lot of flex time, whatever. But the point was, I realized that this is my own journey, right? I very well could have done that. It was my business. And I could have, even if there were conflicts, we could have worked with conflict resolution. But I realized in going through the ideals, like I actually worked with a life coach the year before I made the decision because I was like, I could feel this nudge of something different, but I didn't know what it was. And the hardest thing for me, and I write about this in the Path to Profits, is I had no idea how to answer the question, what's your ideal work day? What's your ideal weekend? What's your ideal week evening? And I just thought, I'm an entrepreneur. There's no ideal. Like we have 17 employees. Like you go in, there's fires who came in, who didn't come in, somebody's whatever. It's like, there's no ideal. And I realized in doing the work with support, right? Because again, if I had no support, I would have just been left to my own vices, never had the contemplated pieces of what did I want even the business to look like? Did I want to make changes there? Or did I want to take a different approach? In doing the work with somebody, even 2 weeks of not being able to answer that question, I was still committed to the work. And I thought, okay, what would be my ideal if I could just like dream it up? And you know what the answer was for me? I wouldn't be yelling at my 8-year-old in the morning on the way to school. Because if we got behind that bus and we weren't out at the door by a certain time, I got behind that bus and then I was going to drop him off at a certain time and I was going to be late for my day. So ideal for me were these little things like, I just don't want to yell at my kid in the morning. I want to hug him and pour into him. And I thought that's what we all want to do as parents, but then we really see our ugly selves. And I thought, I'm seeing the ugly self more than I'm seeing the loving self. And so I think when you come through this place of you're right there, my message to entrepreneurs is really lean in. Founders, like, are you founders, most people, when you use the word founder, they'll say, oh yeah, I'm building it for sale. You say business owner and they're building it for cash flow, right? So people will put on this badge of I'm a founder, and that means I'm exiting and I'm going to have whatever, whether it's private equity or I'm going to have a path out. And they're very intuitive to what that might look like. But again, they may not be in tune to their personal finances. They're so focused on the business that they're not even thinking about the lifestyle design, right? Which clearly comes back into play when you take the exit, regardless of what that exit looks like. So I guess my messaging is, regardless of whether you're finding yourself in burnout and you just need out, like your stress is high. I mean, I was having health issues. I thought I was having a heart attack. And like I say this in the Path to Profits, the number one cause of death for agency owners, for like agency principals that own insurance agencies, is 50, and it's a massive heart attack. And I was 47 years old, and I thought, that's not going to be my demise. I've worked really hard, but I don't want that to be my demise. And I'll tell you something, the day that I told my business partner that morning that I wanted to plan an exit, and I didn't know if she was ready. I had an idea that she wasn't. Her 2 daughters worked for us and had come into the business. That morning at 10:30, I had that conversation with her at 8. I opened up the conversation, and at 10:30, one of my competitors in town dropped dead of a heart attack. He was 50 years old in his office. And I thought, oh my God. And this was what I was feeling, right? So I'm glad that I answered the call, but I think showing up in your business differently from the onset, or even right now, I said earlier, like, you can do anything differently if you just make a decision that you're going to do something different. So if today's the day that you've been in financial avoidance, if today's the day that you've just been thinking about the cash flow of the business and not thinking about building it to exit, like showing up differently, get support to help you see things differently, different perspective, and go into the places where you might have been hiding or avoiding, or you've been just hustle culturing it. And there's just no room for you to work on the business versus in the business, right? This is an invitation. And there's always room if you make a different decision. There's always room.
The choice I choose, I think, is one of the most powerful phrases in the human language. And I think it may be only second to I am. So I love the way that you put that together, that it's just a decision. And what's really cool is if you have awareness that you have a decision and you have awareness that you don't like a situation and you're intentional about actually deciding what you would like more of and what you would like less of, then you can, in fact, make a decision from a place of being informed versus just running the program and being a slave to the business and being at the whim of the whirlwind, which I think most people live on autopilot. and they wait for opportunities to be presented to them instead of creating them because they chose something instead
Yeah.
of being offered something.
And that's the invitation in the path to profits. It opens, right? There's three pillars. It's vision, flow, cash flow, obviously, and grow, which is visibility and marketing the business and letting people know that you're out there and looking for more, right? But this opening invitation in the vision pillar is about going deeper. All of the chapters have exercises, right? And so it's going deeper into the personal core values, not necessarily the mission statement of the business, but or the core values of the business, but like what are your personal core values? And to your point, where are you now in these 8 different pillars of your life, right? Where is your health and fitness now? Where would you like to be? What are the 3 goals that you have in that area? What are the triggers and the things that are keeping you stuck, right? And then setting like an action step for taking the first step to like improving that area. And so it goes into this, it's an invitation for readers or listeners, right? Because it's on Audible to do the work and to much to the things that shifted me, the transformations in the trigger. And so if you're willing to sit down and do the exercises, right? You can read the book, you can listen to the book, you'll learn. It'll be great theory, right? We can all read something and go, oh, I got that nugget. But when you actually do the work, that's where the transformations happen. So that's the invitation to your listeners is grab it and do the work. And if it's a transition of divorce or anything personal, whether it's a divorce or not, prosperity after divorce moves you through those same exact processes, just on a personal level versus the business level.
So, in case you guys haven't been able to keep up, because we're moving quick, we moved through 2 different books. Michelle has Path to Prosperity. No,
The path to profits
Path to Profit, and then
is, yep,
Prosperity After the Divorce, right?
you got it. Yep.
And so we didn't introduce the second book well, but I just wanted you guys to understand that the pillars that she's talking about is from the second book. And so let's talk about the inspiration for writing the second book, because I think we've talked around it, but we didn't talk directly about it.
The inspiration really comes from this same place, right? So now I'm exited my business. I take a year sabbatical, looking for what is the next thing that I'm supposed to do. And it's funny because my first shingle that I put up a year after I exited from my insurance agency was Sick of the Hustle Financial Coaching. Is that great? So aligned, right, with where I was in the moment. And I was doing personal financial coaching, helping people get out of debt, manage their finances, getting a better handle, even college students coming out. They have no education in this area, right? They come out with their degrees and they're like, hey, even MBAs, they're coming out and they're like, I have no idea how to like budget and I need a little support. And divorce people kept showing up, right? And I'm like, okay, that's so strange. I'm not advertising for that. So here I was like a couple years into the financial coaching world and I was depleting emotionally, financially. I'm watching my bank accounts go down to like really quickly as somebody who took an exit and planned on that money like lasting for however long, right? And I'm like, okay, this is not the abundance. And when I say abundance, I mean living in my gifts, right? I don't mean wealth. I mean living in my gifts in all ways. And I energetically was depleting, financially was depleting and whatnot. And so I remember just saying, this isn't it. Like, what part of this am I not getting right? And I realized that I had sidelined my gifts in my consulting business because I didn't want to be seen as too analytical. I didn't want to be seen. I was just there to serve, but I wasn't bringing all of my gifts. And I literally remember, right, in meditation hearing, you put all of your gifts on a bookshelf. Like I literally was like, that was my last chapter. This is my purpose chapter. When the truth was, these were my true gifts, right? And I was sidelighting them, pull them off the shelf and bring them into this chapter. And now I'm completely in nirvana, working with entrepreneurs. Some of them, yes, going through divorce, but most of them, it was coming back into this journey with business owners. Insurance was just the vessel that I actually came into entrepreneurs' journey with, right? I was able to be a trusted advisor. And I was like, oh, I could be a business consultant and work with them on the money and work with them on the strategy because I had 30 years of experience, right? And all things. And so the book is me taking all of the things that I've been doing with clients and helping them be on the winning side of that failed business statistic, right? We all know it. 66% of businesses fail in the first 3 to 5 years. I think the number's higher because we have such access to personal credit debt and leverage. And then we find ourselves like, oh my God, right? Here I am. And I can't figure it out. And for me, what's in the book is the path to being able to get clear about your vision and your goals, like not ending up where I was, where you build the monster, you think this is it. It's building it from a place of what do you want your life to look like, right? what is a life by design, and then designing the business to align with that. Now, what happens, much like what happened with me, many times I work with clients and the business model isn't aligned. Even if their financial goals are a certain thing, they're telling me they want to work 4 hours a week and have this lifestyle business, but they want to make $1 million. And I'm like, the business model that you have built is not aligning with these goals and values, right? And so the book is a combination of what I know to be true, which is that you have to have clarity around the results you're after. And that's personal, core values, business, like what is it that you want your life to look like? The flow chapter is going under the hood of the personal and the business finances and understanding the marriage between the two and giving them the framework to actually build out a cash flow tool, understanding like why you would even put the two together to set your revenue goals for the year, right? It's an invitation for entrepreneurs to set 5 revenue goals for the year, not just say, I want to make 7 figures, right? And then the third part of the book is what I know to be true. So many people are out there looking for the next right thing for the visibility. It's the next funnel. I'm one funnel away. I'm this, I'm that. And it's like, it talks about free press and basics and networking and strategic partnerships. And it talks about podcasting and webinars, but from a perspective of really look at your business. What has worked? If you're a brick and mortar, it's very different than somebody that's running an online model. And I think that the goal of the book is to support business owners in that journey, but most importantly, with the emphasis on the financial aspect, because it's really what I'm most passionate about, so that people can be on the winning side. And the blend of the 3 pillars together is the framework. It's the roadmap. It gives them the roadmap and gets them to understand that they need a financial runway to be successful in business.
All right. Financial runway. What is it?
Financial runway means don't quit your job before you have money in savings that you're going to navigate this change. Understand your numbers, right? Understand. It really no longer surprises me how many entrepreneurs have no idea at all, or even some of like the terms, the metrics, the things that they need to know in their business, but they have no idea what they need the business to do for them from a lifestyle perspective, right? So what I mean by that is if you're single, it's all of you. But if you're married, it's important for you to understand like, okay, can this business not bring home a paycheck? Is my husband or wife able to sustain the lifestyle? So it's helping people get out of the weeds of like the dream state, which is like, it's just all going to work. I have tons of passion and inspiration. I have skill set. Yes, but you also need the roadway, the runway to not run out of money so that you can actually make the impact that you're made to make. So how do you do that? You have to understand what the full view of your lifestyle is, not just the bills with the due dates, but like I just ordered contacts. They were $140, right? And that may seem minuscule, but there's 2 of us wearing contacts in this home and they get ordered every 6 weeks, right? The kids, if they're going to camp, if your grocery bill is up, like you got to have a real cool, like a good understanding of what the lifestyle design is so that you can actually fragment the different pieces, much like if you have a mortgage and they save for taxes and insurance. It's this methodology of escrowing for the things that aren't here yet. It's not savings because it's coming. Your car taxes are coming. Kids camp is coming, right? The vacation is coming. So it's breaking things down so that you're seeing the full picture so that when you actually are operating the business, this financial runway, if you leave your job, at what point to do that, right? Too many people leave and they drain their 401k. They don't think they're going to drain their 401k. They're going to use 50,000 of it and they're going to invest in this business, but they leave their financial stability and we always undershoot. Even for me, when I made this transition into this new business, look, I just shared with you, I wrote a book. I never planned on writing a book. I thought I was going to do the financial stability stuff with people around just personal finances. I write a book about divorce. I become a CDFA. 3 years later, I'm like, what am I doing? I'm bleeding money and watching my savings go down. My stability is going down. So it took me 3 years. And you know what's so funny, Jerome? I was like, I'm a 25-year entrepreneur at this point. I thought my financial runway would be shorter because I had all of these years of experience, but we still have to go through this evolution of what it is, what people want. Is it really our calling? Like whatever those things are, there's so many layers to it. But even for somebody who's seasoned, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen overnight. And I think too many of us think we're going to leave one thing on a Tuesday and by 2 weeks from now on a Thursday, we've hit it. We've hit it out of the park. And kudos to the people that can make that happen, right? It's like scratching a lottery ticket. But how many of us scratch a lottery ticket and we didn't win? So we have to have the financial runway. And the runway for me is knowing the number and having people say, well, how long, Michelle? Have a year of savings. Have a year. And I don't think anything less than that is something to risk. And too many people come into it with $10,000 in savings. And what they don't realize is that's 1 month of their lifestyle and maybe a $2,500 emergency fund. And then they have a homeowner's claim, and they're in Florida, the hurricane deductible is $9K. And all of a sudden, guess what? $9,000 of that money's gone.
Well, and they
So
took money in the business.
right. And then what happens, right? It's like grind, grind, grind. And it's like they're never making traction. So I say the financial runway is as important as the roadmap to getting there.
Woo! You're stepping on toes today, Michelle.
Yeah, I know. Listen, I made those mistakes myself, right?
Yeah, I mean, this whole people think entrepreneurship in a lot of ways is get rich quick, and
Mhm.
it's never that. And I found that it always takes longer than you expect, and it always costs more than you would expect. And sometimes, more often than not, the initial return is smaller than you expected.
Yeah.
And if you're able to stay with it long enough or get the right connections, then you can create a flywheel and things can grow very quickly. But it's almost like a viral post. The formula for that to happen is very elusive, and it requires a ton of experimentation and potential. I think it only becomes a loss if you quit or
Yeah.
run out of
Mhm.
money. But there's a bunch of trying things to figure out the thing that works, because in concept, you're building something that other people haven't, especially in your brand or in your way. And so
Yeah. I
this
think
is,
it's true as well, what you just said about it's always less, right? And I think to speak to the exit piece, when people come to you and they're looking at the exit strategy, right? They think it's one thing, and then they realize there's capital gains, and they realize that they can structure the deal differently. But in their head, they're like, no, it's worth this, right? It's like, this is what I want. And they don't have any grasp on the different, if without support, they don't have any grasp on like what that looks like. It's generally, it's either less or more due to the educate, like, they lack education to know whether it could be less or more, what they could do differently, how they structure goodwill versus just a certain buy asset sale versus stock sale. It's like, there's all these things that they don't know, but most times it ends up being less than they think because they're not thinking about the fact that there's the capital gains and the taxes and the different structures. They didn't realize that when their CPA told them to set up a C Corp versus an S Corp, like they have no clue, right? Because when they built it, they weren't thinking about the exit. And I think that to our point, it's just getting support so you have the understanding like of what it really is, and then you can make informed decisions, right? And I think too that it gives people the invitation. I just think that our most powerful contributions are always going to be at the intersection of our purpose and our values and our greatest gifts. And I don't know about you, but I've never been able to walk that journey of elevating that place for myself without support. And so it kind of like, you hear me say the word support, support, support. It comes with community. It's how we met. Like, you don't go it alone, right? The mindset piece, like, I need a warrior mindset. I need an abundance mindset. I need a growth mindset. I need a community mindset. And damn it, I need a winning mindset. And I think it's just speaking to entrepreneurship, it's all of those things.
yeah. If you want to have a comprehensive view, some people want to be in an echo chamber. And that echo chamber is one that keeps people going down a path and getting blindsided over
Mhm.
and over and over
Over and
again.
over.
And I don't think that actually is what you get from real and authentic relationships. In fact, I think the people that help with the echo chamber make it such that most of them aren't relevant or needed. If we agree about everything, then I don't actually understand what value or contribution you're making to the relationship.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself, I think, is a disservice or a joke. So, man, we've covered so much ground. Um, I'm sure that they want to learn more about you and what you've got going on. And I know they can grab the books, but where should they go if they want to envision success?
Yeah, I would definitely check out my website. It's michellejacobik.com. You can learn about how I support people there with a done with you or a done for you modeling. I love done with you, right? Because I'm about like teaching people up and giving them empowerment. And also follow me on social, right? I love dropping some money tips, lifestyle tips, different things that help entrepreneurs have different perspective. And I don't just share the highlight reels, right? Like, I share all the stuff. And so many times for me, I mean, it's funny, today I just did a reel about the fact that my son has just been stationed in Guam, and I just can't get this mind to think from time travel, right? Like, oh, it's a different day there, it's a different time. And I literally, as a mom would do, went to check the weather where he is. And I'm like, oh, the weather app showed me the time right now. Like I don't have to go thinking about it. And it's those little nuggets that we don't need to be using this brain all the time, right? But there's so many things that I share on my socials. And again, it's just Michelle Jacobik on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. But I think that I love being able to be in relationship with people and connected with people. And social allows us to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you have an event coming up soon. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Last year, I birthed the Thrive Hive Masterminds. And we host 2 days, 3 times a year where people can drop in without being in a consultancy contract. It's a great room. I keep them small and intimate. And we have one coming up in Savannah, and we'll be meeting there next month. I actually have 3 seats remaining. But honestly, it's a great place because it allows people that have a track record of success who are eager to share their strategies, they're there for mutual growth and enrichment, really. They're not there. There's nobody selling. We're there to learn, collaborate, share resources, interact with our peers, give and receive advice. We do hot seats and really grow from the collective experience of the group. I think a lot of people are craving that deeper connection, and being able to host a room like that is an honor for me, right? I have a 35-year network. It's been beautiful to be able to bring people together and to watch, even without this whole no selling rule, the collaborations that happen, the magic. It just blows my mind every single time. So we have our next one is in Savannah, March 31st through April 1st. We'll meet again in Naples here in June, and then probably in New England or Phoenix. I might have to go to the West Coast in September, but we'll do a third one. And it's beautiful because there's no commitment other than show up, be of service and be of value, and keep your ego out of the room, right? No judgment of self, no judgment of others. And don't come in here trying to take the room because it doesn't belong there. But it's been really great.
I love it. I love it. I love it. The desire to serve is rare. I think most people are trying to figure out what they can get from others. And you embody, how can I support? How can I serve? And it's one of the main things that I enjoy most about you, Michelle. So thank you so much for sharing with us today. I'd like to wrap up the show with the final question of, what is the one thing you want listeners to take away from the episode?
I would just say, if you can dream it, you can achieve it. If you can dream it, you can achieve it.
Yes, 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 yes. You heard it. She said it. I'm going to say it a little differently. Your dreams should be real. We'll catch you on the next episode.